just flip the switch in a day, you can too. And it does not take, I know you might think, oh, but that took 30 years. No, it was 30 years of me making it worse and one single moment where it flipped. And I've seen it happen over and over and over again. This is not a forever thing.
Welcome to your Journey to Joy podcast. I'm your host, Moyra Gorski, and I'm on a mission to help you find joy in the chaos of life. As a retired nurse, multi-passionate entrepreneur, and mom of 4 adult children, I know what it's like to feel the overwhelm of it all and wonder if and when the joy will show up again. And I've learned it's up to us to go find that joy. On this show, you will hear inspiring stories from those who have overcome all kinds of life challenges, tips on how to stay healthy and vibrant during the ups and downs of life, and simple ways on finding joy in your own life. Let's face it, life is messy, yet when we travel together on this journey, support and encourage each other along the way, that joy starts to show up again. I'm so excited to lead you on this journey of you to find the joyful life that you deserve. Well, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Moyra Gorski, all about journeying to joy and finding joy in our lives. And today I have a wonderful guest who I met through LinkedIn, I've met some incredible people through LinkedIn in the last few years as I've delved into that platform more. And I just think it's really appropriate. I wanted her to come and speak on my podcast because she coaches high-achieving women to manage stress and anxiety. And I don't know about you, but I hear about anxiety and stress all of the time. And I go through a bit of it myself. So I feel like I know that she has some great tips. She has her own story, as many of my guests do. And so before we go any further, Megan DeVito, I'm so glad that you're here. And I can't wait to have a nice conversation with you and to hear everything that you share.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is always so much fun. And yeah, I love it that you said that you feel like, I feel like everybody is talking about anxiety and stress, and that you said that I felt it too. Yeah, because we're human, right?
We're human, yeah.
And we're going to.
Right. And I think it's, as we get into this, I think that it's just gone up incrementally since the pandemic and being shut down and like all of that, the impact of that. But even this week, as I was going through, I think I may have told you, and, I'm planning a trip to Bali, a retreat, and I'm going to go early and we're with a new girlfriend, and we're going to go to Thailand. And so it was getting to the point that I needed to make some flight arrangements. And
right.
I've chosen to fly very comfortably. And thanks to my father who gifted us some money when he passed. And to not go into that story, although I think it's still very appropriate for this day, like I started to have such anxiety around a lot of that. Like the anxiety around like, okay, wait a minute, the prices are going up. I don't have an airline ticket. And oh my gosh, it keeps going up. And yes, I agreed to myself, I'm going to pay a lot of money, but like, this is a lot of money. And oh, by the way, I do have the money. I have plenty of money. We're not even going to hardly tap into what my father, this was all the stuff that was going through my head as I'm sitting on the computer going, what the actual, oh my gosh, these are so much more expensive than they were last week. And I seriously, I wear an Oura ring, and I went back and looked at my heart rate and my stress level, as Or would say, and man, it was up. And it's not good. And again, that's all stuff that I'm processing through, and about, worthiness of money and worthiness of spoiling myself and all of that. There's a lot of things that I journaled about and that I'm processing through. But the fact is, I was having an extremely stressful, anxious day. And, as I talked to my girlfriend on the phone who I'm traveling with, she goes, just take some deep breaths. And I was like, I'm not even breathing. You're breathing right up here, in your throat. And that was about it.
Right.
So, but again, case in point, I talk about stress a lot on this podcast, but I don't know what that was. If it was stress, anxiety, whatever, but it was a day, it was a couple hours of just extreme, my body was reacting to this thing going on in my head. So, we'll start with that. That was my experience this week. And I think, as we're going to talk about, just the fact that even my friend said, breathe, we need to have some tools. It's important to have some tools. that when we run into these things, be it a personal thing, a professional thing, whatever it is, having those tools so that we can down regulate ourselves and get through that time of anxiety,
Yeah.
stress, whatever it is, overwhelm. It was a lot of
Yeah.
things for me. So
Right. And it's always so interesting where your brain goes in those moments too, right? I mean, rationally, like this is ridiculous. I already said I'm doing this. I already know I have the money. And your brain's like, oh, but what if this? What if this? What if this? And it starts just everything to make you
everything. Yeah, to make me just nutso instead of being the whole, what I talk about all the time too, is being grateful. Like, thank you, Dad.
Yeah.
Like, thank you. I'm going to have an incredible trip. And thank you for gifting me this money so that I can go and enjoy life. And instead of being grateful for that and saying, thanks, Dad, I miss you, but I'm going to go see the elephants because of you. Like all of that, I just couldn't get there, And the interesting thing is that afternoon, I had a mastermind. I'm in a part of a couple of masterminds with some other entrepreneurs. And one of the gentlemen on there is a financial planner. And he said, the interesting thing is, he said, I help people plan their finances, build their wealth. And some people build an incredible amount of wealth and then they go to retire. And he said, I can't get them to spend the money. Like they've worked so hard to build it, but they have this, no, I can't spend it though. And so, there's that. He said, it's a very common issue, like, part of what I was going through. So yeah, very interesting. So tell my audience a little bit about you and your story. Because again, so many of us, we go through things and we learn, and then we become passionate about helping others go through what we went through or learn, about what we learned. So I'd love to have you share your story here, kind of how it all started.
Sure. Wow. I wish I knew how it all started. I mean, I can remember when I think it started. Hindsight is always, our best friend and our worst enemy. But thinking about where it started, I mean, I think I was just a really sensitive, anxious kid. I've said so many times that I have the most vanilla, normal, safe, untraumatic childhood out there. I still hang with my parents all the time. I went to dinner with them last night. They live 2 miles from me. I had my grandparents until I didn't lose a grandparent until I was 21 years old. Like I did not have things happening. I was a terrified kid of everything. I was scared of everything, which is, maybe that's normal. I don't know, but it didn't feel normal for me growing up when I grew up. I'm 49. So, it was the 80s. Like, I think I started in like third grade and it was the 80s and people just did not talk about anxiety or mental health. It was suck it up, stop crying. I'll give you something to cry about. Like everything's fine. Why are you so freaked out? Like, and all of those things are true, right? Everything is fine. And I did suck it up and I went to college and had kids and did all the things, right? And I was terribly anxious through the entire process to the point where in college, I was having multiple panic attacks and anxiety attacks that would last for sometimes 2 weeks where I just was like frozen and I could not get out of my own head. And so for me in particular, my anxiety tend to focus on my health. So I explained it at one point to my mom, like, I just want you to understand that it's almost like my brain misreads every feeling inside of my body and turns it into a catastrophe. I would have, after my youngest daughter was born, for example, I developed this like twitch in my thumb and I Googled it, which is always the worst thing you could ever do. And so I'm like, no, you don't understand. I'm positive that I either have MS or ALS. I'm going to die. I have this baby and something's wrong. And it was scattered throughout my whole body. I'm like, I'm dying again, right? From the 100th disease that I thought I had in my life, like all these different things. I've had nothing. I went to the neurologist. He's like, hey, nervous systems are weird. And I'm like, that's all you've got for me right now? I'm dying. And he's like, no, I've looked at your brain and you're not. So really just this idea that my brain was always making like something, like my body would feel weird. I thought it was a horrible thing. And just really trying to navigate that from the time I was 8 years old until I was almost 40. So whatever it was, and I love that you mentioned that your brain, even though you had all this evidence that you were financially secure, Your brain's like, yeah, but whatever the story was, your brain will make up stories to solve for the way that your body feels. And until I got to this point in my adult life where I recognized that, I don't know why this never dawned on me. I don't have to believe everything that I think. And it goes back to that idea of logic. Logically, you knew that you had the money. Logically, I knew that I always kind of knew I was okay. But for me to be able to say, oh, so I can choose my thoughts, I can choose what I'm focusing on, I can choose how I respond, how my body feels. That was just like this moment where I was like, wait a minute. And I was walking, listening to an audiobook that had absolutely nothing to do with anxiety at all. And it was really more about me trying to find my way out of education. Like, what could I do besides teaching with a teaching degree? And the quote in the book was, worry is wishing for what you don't want. And I was like, well, who would do that? And I'm like, oh, me, I would do that. I would do that really, really well. That would be the story of my life for so long. And whether it was that I had started walking on a more regular basis, or whether it was that I was giving myself space to actually think in a different way, whatever it was, something in that very moment shifted. So, was it a one and done thing? No, it's a practice. But my story was really, I was anxious, and I was one of those people that was out there doing all the things. I was going to college, and then I was coming home and like sobbing and hiding in my bed, and constantly checking myself to see like lumps and bumps and bruises and things to try to stay safe.
Mm-hmm.
But I just never let myself be safe. I always just was on guard. Yeah. And it's been 10 years now, and I haven't had a long anxiety attack or a panic attack in forever. And it's just been so long, and everything is different. And so now when my body freaks out and my brain starts saying something, I'm like, oh yeah, this is what I do. And I just say, I'm not allowed to believe anything that I think right now. And I move on. And I think that, gosh, I wish somebody would have taught me that as a kid.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and there's so many things you said in there that I want to talk about, like just that, like looking at things or looking at your body or checking things to make sure that, to keep yourself safe. Like sometimes it's so weird, if you will, for lack of a better word, like when we do things to keep ourselves safe, and in the end, it's like destroying us. I have a daughter who went through an eating disorder. We watched her doing things that she felt like was keeping her safe, be it walking for hours in our town, or, walking downstairs in circles, or restricting her diet, or, people self-harm, they cut, they do things like that to make themselves feel safe and secure. But in the end, it's not good. It's detrimental, to their health. And even a friend of mine said, security and safety, it's an illusion, like the security of life is an illusion, right? And I was like, security of money is an illusion. Security of, of your life is kind of an illusion. When you think about that, it's kind of true. And it can be very freeing to think like, well, it's about choice, right? And that's what you're saying, is that you realized that you had a choice, that you could listen to the thoughts in your head. You could listen to the evidence. I mean, there's a practice that I've done before that, like, when I'm in this deep, like, crap and muck and I'm believing a certain way, then whoever, like, the practice is you sit down and you write everything that's against that. Okay, what's the evidence for the fact that I'm going to have success? I'm going to travel well. I'm going to, win this race or whatever, or I'm a successful entrepreneur. What's what's the evidence for it? And you can, if you take the time to write it, it's like, wow, I guess not so bad, or whatever the case is,
Yeah. I think there's a lot of value to writing it out, because there is, I mean, I use that a lot with people when I'm coaching them to talk about when they can't sleep because they can't shut their brain off. There's something just really powerful about taking it out of your brain and putting it on paper and being able to see that. And like, in addition to that, there's also something that when we even talk about, like, for example, your trip, when you said, I know I have the money. I'm so grateful that my dad gifted me this money so that I can go see the elephants. So rationally, I know everything is good. And when you're anxious and your body is feeling it, that's sort of the difference. And so and to be clear, there's a definite difference between feeling anxious and having the anxiety disorder that I had at that point, where you are obsessively anxious, where it's like trapped in your nervous system anxious. But I think really going into the idea of, yes, we can look at things and try and be logical, but when your body is fired up and you are feeling anxious, those rational thoughts won't click. And that's what's so tricky, is to be able to say, I know, for me, look, I know rationally, I probably don't have XYZ, whatever this thing is that I'm terrified of. Or I know that if I go on this trip, I'm not going to be destitute, right? Like, I'm not going to be like, have to move into the homeless shelter when I get home. That's not going to happen, right? But because I feel anxious, I'm incapable of using that portion of my brain that's able to say, okay, well, you're being silly. Yes, I know it, but I don't feel it. And that's the dividing line.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to delineate that. And because that's really what I felt. I mean, I felt my heart beating out of my chest, and it came on so, I think, so quickly. And it was probably a combination of having a cup of coffee down the street with some lady friends. That never helps because I don't often drink. I mean, I drink coffee occasionally, but I think when I look back, it was like, okay, I had a big old cup of coffee with these ladies and started talking about the trip, which was really cool. It was like this grateful moment because a couple of these ladies that were part of this group that I'm a part of here in my town, they were like world travelers. They had traveled at the level that I'm looking to travel at the prestige level. And they talked about the lounges and they gave me some tips to travel, make sure you have a 3-hour layover because you can go to the lounges and you can even take a shower, you can sleep. There's this great food. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. I'm so glad I came today because I'm learning. And they're like, it is completely worth it to spend the money. So go get your tickets, spend the money because it's worth it. You're going to enjoy it. You're going to be comfortable. And I was like, great. And then I come home and I start to do it. And I literally, my heart rate, it was just, so I get that because I felt very, very stuck in that moment. The moment of anxiety. I mean, I've witnessed my daughter have a panic attack, and I've been there to support her. It wasn't as bad as that, but I felt similar to that as I saw her going through that and saw I felt very, even as my friend, breathe. The thing, it's like, no, I'm gonna, so that's good to delineate that because I think, again, some people can say, oh, yeah, everybody says I should just do this or breathe or go for a walk, and I can't, get out of this state. So I think it would be really important to talk about, again, things that perhaps that you've learned and that you teach your clients to do when they're in that physical anxiety type of state versus, yes, I find that going for a walk is really helpful. I'm going to go walk my dog. I'm going to go sit with my dog and I'm going to journal. It's going to be really nice.
Yeah.
There's difference, right?
Yeah, there's definitely a difference. And since anxiety is really a feeling in your body, we like to look at the thoughts first. And I would just offer that during that, the opposite direction is a lot more productive and really managing your body first. So when we say, I love the just breathe thing, right? Like just take a deep breath. And my answer to that is like, we've been breathing. We just need to change how we're breathing. Because when you said, I'm only breathing in my throat, absolutely. And I've noticed that I tend to, I'm one of those people that tears up over everything, right? I'm a softie. I'm probably why I was the way I was as a kid. Like that's the way I'm wired. And I'm a breath holder. And since I grew up swimming as a swimmer, I can hold my breath for a really long time and not notice until I'm like, oh, I wasn't breathing. And so I will really just having people look at, how are you breathing? So yes, people who are anxious tend to be chest breathers. So I would say, upper chest up, nipple line up, they tend to breathe there. But if you could put your hand on your chest and you could put your hand on your belly button and try and breathe all the way down so that lower hand, that hand on your belly rises, that's called belly breathing. And the first time I learned this, I was in college. I went to therapy for a really short amount of time in college until I decided it was garbage for me because I didn't understand it. And I knew there was a huge stigma attached to it at that point in time. And I was like, I am not doing this. And they're like, you need to breathe till the hand on your belly rises. And I'm like, first of all, that's impossible. And second of all, this is stupid. This is not helping me. But when we can take the time to recognize that it doesn't have to be perfect the first time. And the point is to focus on, instead of breathing, exhaling. Because so often when we are anxious, when we're holding our breath, we keep sipping in little, and maybe not that dramatically, but we take these short little breaths. But if we could just stop and exhale fully, that allows us to breathe in. And that's what makes it possible to breathe in deeper. We just aren't getting that used oxygen out. So we're holding ourselves kind of captive by all the air that we refuse to exhale.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're breathing, being able to say, okay, I'm going to exhale dramatically for a really long time, to the point where I think I have nothing left. And then I'm going to squish a little bit more air out and breathe in slowly. And doing that just 2 times resets your nervous system. It takes you out of fight or flight, and it puts you back closer to rest and digest. So if you continue to do that, I'm going to be dramatic and just really blow that air out as far as I can. I mean, pretend like you're blowing through a straw if you have to. Slowly inhale. Okay, now your shoulders don't feel like they're up around your ears. You don't feel your jaw so tight. That really, and it will stop you from tearing up, which I've used all the time. I'm like, oh, I'm holding my breath. That's why I'm starting to feel so emotional. Exhale. And being able to really push that out, that right away is a game changer for people. I would say if you're sensitive, because one of the things that people who sometimes feel very anxious, one of the things they feel sensitive about is feeling like they can't breathe. And then that makes them more anxious. Something's wrong. I can't breathe. Instead of focusing on your breath, focusing on the exhale takes the focus from the inhale. And that inhale where they feel like they can't get any more air in is what causes them to feel more anxious. So when somebody says, I can't do the breathing because it makes me feel worse, it's usually because they're focusing on that inhale. Okay, we're just going to blow out. And you take breath. Right. We're going to blow out. And that really switches just the thought around the breathing. But yeah, that's really the number one go-to thing. If I ever see, somebody that's super anxious, let's just exhale with me for a second. And starting there. And there's so many amazing tips out there. I mean, we have the internet, which is great, right? We can get on there and say, Google grounding techniques, Google all these things, and they all work. We just want to find the one that works best for you the fastest. So for me, it's always exhale. For somebody else, it might be, I want you to look around the room and find everything that's orange. Just keep looking. Because as soon as you're not thinking about how your body feels, it's not a problem anymore. Right. And that's really that disconnect where we have to start with the body. We have to say, deal with this. And once your brain shuts off, this goes away. Now we can talk about what you're thinking. And, even for you on your trip, being able to say, okay, once that feeling went down, the underlying thought, once you start getting into the, why would I think that? What if that happened? Okay, what if it did? Why did I think that? Then you're like, oh, well, it has something to do with whatever it is,
Right.
Whatever that emotion is. And that's it. Yeah.
Brought to you by Gorski Wellness and the possibility of a better you. Are you feeling sluggish? Ready for a change? Need more energy? Up for a bigger challenge? I'm Moyra Gorski, retired nurse and wellness advocate. For over 22 years, I've been helping people live healthier lives while making small changes each and every day. Those small changes lead my clients to living a healthier lifestyle with markedly better health. As a brand ambassador for the Shaklee Corporation, the most clinically proven wellness company in the world, I guide my clients to make healthier choices each day with their food, supplements, skincare, workouts, and mindset. They say getting started is half the battle. Let's make healthy happen together. If you're ready for simple, natural, sustainable solutions to feeling and looking your best, let's connect. You'll find a link in the show notes or reach out to me at moyragorski.com. Here's to a better you. Well, I think it's really important for people to hear, like, there's so many things, and don't get overwhelmed by the fact that there's so many things, but find what's going to work for you. I mean, for me,
you only need one.
Yeah, I told you before we went on. I mean, I woke up super early today and I couldn't get back to sleep,
Yeah.
and I started to get anxious about that, and then my day, and then all of that. So I got up, but I did some grounding this morning, and I went in the room over here behind. People can't
Hmm.
see me, but whatever, the other room up here that I'm at, and I listened to it. I love sound bowls, and they really help to ground me. And so I listened to a sound bowl chakra meditation on Insight Timer. And then I have a set of tuning forks, and I just did some tuning.
Ooh.
And because I just love the sound. I've learned that really does, just to sit and focus on that. It's like the
Yeah.
circular, I just
You can
love it.
feel it in your body
Oh,
too.
I
It's
completely
crazy.
felt it. Oh yeah. And
Yeah.
it took me a while. It took me a while. Probably by the time he got to the third chakra, I was like, okay, now I'm feeling
Ugh.
or
Yeah.
but for me that helped because I knew I was coming on this morning and I have other things and so it's important for me to ground myself. But I also tell my clients too that I work with, like, just go outside in the morning and just stand in the grass. If you can stand it, take your slippers off and just
Yeah.
stand in the grass or walk around in the grass with your
Yeah.
dog. And just that touching the earth and looking up to the sun, if we have any sun.
Here
It's
today,
just,
but
yeah, they say about 4 o'clock we might have some, but just those simple acts of the grounding and doing your exhaling, it doesn't have to take a long time.
Mhm.
Because like you said, even two big long exhales can make a big difference and
Mhm.
shift your nervous system.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have to take long and it doesn't have to be dramatic, right? I mean, and the thing about, I love that you do the sound baths because there is something weird about, like, I can feel it in my teeth and in my jaws. Like, I'm like, oh, I can feel that. But when you're out, so anxiety, whether it comes from some past trauma, whether it comes from hormone shifts or a change in the light, your brain is so sensitive. So anything that's tied to any memory or any
Mhm.
kind of emotion can flip a switch for you, right? So let's say that you are like me and you like to go to Target and just like walk around, right? So sometimes there was one day I was shopping for throw pillows for whatever reason. I was all of a sudden anxious. Nothing happened. I was just looking at throw pillows. There was no traumatic event. Nobody was mean to me. I mean, nothing, right? Hormones, probably. So I'm standing there and I was like, oh, this feels terrible. And in the past, I would have thought, okay, something's wrong. This is a premonition, whatever it is, anxious brain thoughts. And I was like, oh, I just need to exhale. But exhaled, took a couple breaths, it went away, and I moved on. If you don't have something in your back pocket that you can use on the fly, then it can quickly spiral because whatever it is that trips your trigger. And for some people, it is money anxiety. If I were there and I was thinking, if I buy this pillow, I'm not going to have the money to pay my electric bill, or if I buy this pillow, someone's going to think something about me, or whatever.
Mhm.
Wherever our brain goes, which is always like, what am I thinking? If I go there, it's a slippery slope. But as
Mhm.
soon as I can say, oh, wait, I feel this, no thinking, no thinking aloud. I just need to exhale for a minute. It goes away. You move on. You get an awesome pillow and you go home and your house looks great.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I think you said something about, or I wrote it down about reprogramming. Like, there is this idea, and I believe it is true, that you can reprogram your your brain and things like that,
Absolutely.
right? So can you talk a little bit about that? Because again, I think some people think, okay, I'm anxious, I have this stress response. That's always it's always the way I'm going to be. But
Mhm.
there's the wonderful thing is that's not the way that we
Yeah.
always need to be.
Yeah. And I will offer that the more you tell yourself that, the longer it'll last because
Mhm.
anything you tell yourself becomes your truth. And your brain's like, check, got it. We are anxious. So the first thing I would do is peel that name tag off that says, I am anxious, and throw it in the trash and say something just the simplest shifts because your brain is so sneaky in the way that it says things, especially when you start with I am. And whether you are a faith-based person or not, anytime you say I am, it becomes like the name of God or who you were created to be or anything like that. Peel it off. And if you don't want to be anxious, stop saying I am anxious and start saying sometimes I feel anxious. Because that's the truth. You're not anxious
Right.
24/7. You may feel anxious like a lot. You might be anxious 18 hours of the day, but you're not anxious all the time. And so stopping with the, oh, I'm an anxious person. No, stop saying that. Because whether we recognize it or not, we are always deciding what our brain thinks. And the more we think something, the more we grow patterns. So the way I like to describe this is if you were to spread your hand out and have your fingers pointed out like the palm of your hands, if you could look at all of your fingers as different ideas or thoughts, they're always searching for something else that they already know to find evidence. And the more evidence we find for what we are thinking, the more our brain believes it. But that still doesn't make it true. So, I mean, to go back to my story about Googling symptoms, if I'm afraid of something and I get on Google and I look it up and I see that thing, I've just reinforced the thought. Does that mean that it's true? No. But I've just taught my brain that it could be, and we go down that path. But your brain is very elastic. It's always changing, and it changes relatively quickly. So we might think that we're stuck with this thought pattern or these feelings in our body forever. But as soon as you can step back and say, what evidence do I have for something different? Or when do I feel good? Oh, I felt good for at least of 2 minutes this morning. There was at least a 2-minute stretch where I was just sitting out, looking out the window, and I didn't feel anxious. Awesome. Let's go with that. So you have evidence that you're not always anxious. So let's find another one. And then I'd like to call it collecting Easter eggs, right? We're on an Easter egg hunt for what we want, not what we don't want. Because so often we're focusing, because your brain is designed to keep you safe, you're focusing on anything that feels untrue, unsafe, any of those things. And it's going to do that naturally, but you have to force it to go where you want it to go. So it's intentionally finding what is already working for me. When have I actually felt good? What is it that I'm focusing on? And then going to the things that you want. And when you do that, your brain starts to grow some more of those little fingers to connect with what you want. And that's how it changes. It's called neuroplasticity. We used to have that, that old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Not true.
Right.
We just accepted the fact that this is who I am. I was born this way. I've had so many clients that say, well, I was just born this way. Yes, you could absolutely be born with a sensitive nervous system. I was. But that doesn't mean you have to be anxious all the time. Even if you are more sensitive to the things around you, or you tend to have a body that feels more anxiety inside of it, it doesn't mean that you're anxious. It just means you have a feeling in your body. And as soon as you learn to say, oh, I know that feeling and I know how to turn it off, I know what to do with it, it's not who you are. But you have to start with what you're saying about yourself and how you refer to yourself. And that holds true if you say, oh, I'm such a klutz. I don't know. I'm so bad at math. Oh my gosh, I lived that one forever. And then I was like, I've been telling myself I'm so bad at math, I can't do math for most of my life. I taught algebra 2 and developed curriculum. And at one point, I'm like, don't ask me these questions. I'm terrible at math. They're like, but you're the algebra teacher. And I'm like, well, that was a stupid idea. It's like, I don't know who put me in charge of that. I mean, like, I'm not a math brain person. And I only taught math because they needed somebody for a while, and I could do it. Right. But I'm teaching algebra 2 and telling my students, you guys, I'm terrible at this. And I'm like, why do I keep saying this?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like it, but
well, and
really
I think,
being conscious.
Yeah. I mean, just the idea that we've had gone through this. I mean, it seems like a long time ago, which is great, although it was just a few years ago when we were all stuck inside, and people have talked about how they've just become anxious and they just are socially awkward and, those type of things. Well, again, I imagine there was a lot of like, just again, being safe in your house, and then just the thought of, and just the whole, scariness of what was going on and the unknown, and people just getting more anxious during that time. And then, okay, now you can go outside. Now you can go be with people. They just, they were afraid of that. So I think just more and more that there's just more of that anxiousness, but just this idea, these steps, like, let's just take it one step at a time and one interaction at a time, or one 2-minute session at a time, or something like that. and knowing that, you know, we can, like you said, reprogram it. And you don't have to think that like, oh, how does that really work? You don't have to think about how it works. You just have to do it.
No.
Just, because I
Mhm.
tend to be, if you're those, oh, I gotta figure it out. I gotta know everything about everything. Like you don't. You just
Nope.
can do what you're suggesting to do. And before you know it, you're like, wow, that, I used to be anxious about this and it just happened again, and I'm not. And before you know it, you find yourself in a better place physically and mentally.
Yeah. And we're in such a place where we have access to so much information. I do not think that we were designed to know the amount of stuff that we know. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's healthy. And I think it's a huge part of why we're so anxious. Not that I want people to live with their head in the sand. Please be informed, right? Be informed, be aware, but you do not. Unless you are a cardiologist, you don't need to know all the things about your heart. That's why you go to the cardiologist, right? Like,
Mhm.
unless you are I don't know, whatever else the specialty is that's freaking you out, you don't need to know. And so we don't need to know all of these things, but we do. And the more information we take in, the more that your brain's going to try to have to protect you from. So it's going to say, oh, this thing's happening. Now I have to protect you from this. Now I have to protect you from this. So, and in the pandemic, it was everything from sanitizing Amazon boxes. Don't touch that box. Well, now I don't know what I can touch.
Right.
Let's just, yeah. And so I think that we did develop that, but so we have way too much information that's making us feel anxious and uncomfortable. But we've also gotten to a place where we think that we're supposed to feel good all the time. And it's very much I feel uncomfortable. I don't feel good, which means something is wrong, when sometimes we're supposed to be uncomfortable. When you do something you've never done before, it's going to be uncomfortable. When you talk to somebody you've never talked to before, it's going to be awkward. And that's actually a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
It can motivate you, but we're so terrified of anything that's uncomfortable that we're like, oh, I could never do that. It makes me uncomfortable. And I'm like, that's keeping us stuck.
Right. Right.
It's keeping us stuck.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because again, we just we live in this world of social media that people share their highlight reels. And so we have this illusion again that everybody's life is beautiful. And we live in, and then, we end up feeling like, oh, I'm feeling bad. So I'm going to take a drink, or I'm going to, smoke this pot, or I'm going to do this or that, whatever. Or I'm going to go numb myself out somehow because I can't feel bad. Well, and we do that too much, then we just are scared to not be numbing ourselves out. But that's what ends up happening. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. Like, it's okay to be sad, and it's okay to sit with your feelings of, like, with my dad passing, there's days that I'm very sad about that, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Because I interviewed a gal for my podcast when my mom was passing, and she said, and she's a end of life doula and a grief coach. And she said, we grieve so much because we've loved so much. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to grieve. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be sad that you broke up with your boyfriend and you're kind of missing them, but you know that it's not a good idea for you to be with them, but it's okay to be sad. And then, okay, now let's go do something fun. I mean, but it's life is a roller coaster up and down. And it's okay to be that way. And we should feel our feelings as opposed to numbing them out and then saying, oh, everything's just fine.
Yeah.
Right.
And there's the rule of thirds.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Right.
Tell me what's
there's this rule of thirds. A third of your life is going to suck. 100%. It's going to be awful. You're going to be sad. You're going to get your feelings hurt. You're going to get, you might get fired from your job. You might get in a car accident. A third of it's going to be bad. A third of it's going to be neutral, where you're like, I was fine. I don't really have any positive or negative. It was whatever. And a third of your life is going to be amazing, where there's going to be marriages and babies and like great vacations and all the things. But we can't live in the third of the life is amazing thing, because we're to the point now where even neutral is like, I don't really think I'm depressed. I'm like, no, it's just like nothing. It's whatever. It's just fine. You shouldn't have to feel excited about making toast in the morning. I mean, it's just toast. It's whatever. Right. And then we get to that third where it's negative, like, I can't handle any of this, but you can. And you don't, if you spend all of your life in the amazing zone, it loses its amazing. It's just like the idea if you go to Disney World, you go there and let's say it's the happiest place on earth and you walk in and you're like, you've never been there. So just imagine this. You walk in and you're like, wow, like this is really, really cool. I'm not a huge Disney fan, but I mean, when you go there, it's easy to get sucked in.
It is true. I know.
It's amazing.
But I went there, yeah, with my daughter's band and over a Thanksgiving Day parade of bands. And I was like, this is an amazing place. It was packed.
It really is.
It was packed with people, but I was like, wow, this is so nice.
Magical.
Amazing.
But if you did it every day, the magic isn't there.
Correct.
Because your brain adapts quickly and suddenly you are constantly chasing the best thing. You have to have a bad reset. And it's just that balance between light and dark. And I love that you brought up grieving because I've talked about this with so many different people that the only reason that you feel so awful is because there was so much love.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Would you give that up? No.
Not at all.
Never. And that's just, it has to balance. But this idea that we should just always feel good, it's killing us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And, you know, I feel like I'm grieving more for my father, which I believe I am. I know I am. I know I grieved for my mother, but it's that just acceptance on my part to be like, yeah, but you you developed this really cool, close relationship with your father the last 3 years. And it's really special and it really feels good, you know? And so I am grieving. I'm sadder than I was when my mom passed. And that's okay, right? There's no judgment. That's okay. It's just the reality, of it. And it's just important to know that. And I do want to mention on this, just since we went to grief, the gal that just cut my hair told me about Anderson Cooper. And he has a podcast called, have you heard about it? All There Is. And I had never heard about it. And she sent it to me and it's all about grief. And, it's for anybody that might be listening that is going through major grief and anxiety, like take a listen because it's fascinating. He interviews people and then he has people call in and talk about and leave him a message on his voicemail, which I called and left him a message. And he said he listens to them all. And he listens to them all. And sometimes
sure doing that.
Yeah. Sometimes he shares what they say on his podcast. But it's really fascinating. And it's fascinating. I don't know if that's probably not the right word. It is kind of fascinating when you listen. It's very sad. But it also, as I've said, we share our stories. We share our grief so that we feel like we're not alone. As I was melancholy that day when my hairdresser, when she cut my hair and we were talking about it and I listened to her, I'm like, wow, look, see, I'm not alone. And so, and wow, my grief isn't as bad as that person's grief. I think that's the importance of sharing those stories of grief, anxiety, whatever it is, so that we feel like we're not alone, but then we can hear other people's stories like, wow, I don't think I could have made it through that. So I can make it through this, that type of thing. But it was such a gift that she told me about that podcast that I want to make sure I mention it here because it's a good one. And he just finished his first season or his second season. So he's taking a break and it'll come back and all that. But it's a good one. Yeah.
He has a sad story too. Anderson Cooper's story is sad. I mean, from his mom and his brother and his dad. And yeah, I'm a huge fan anyway. So I've not listened to his podcast, but I do know a little bit of his just backstory just because I really love him. But yeah, and I think it's always interesting too that we think that when we think about other people's grief and we think, we hear about what they're going through or whether it's their anxiety or their fears or their life situations, thinking about someone who's ill, I'm like, I don't think I could ever handle that. But 100% you could, because I'm sure they thought the same thing and they are.
Right.
Yeah, we're so much stronger and so much more resilient than we give ourselves credit for, but we do let our brains go down those paths. And it's just interesting when we go down those paths, we can make ourselves anxious about it, just thinking about it, because your brain works, everything is real time, right? If you think it assumes it's happening. It's how you listen to songs on the radio and end up sobbing because of the lyrics that have nothing to do with your life. You're just creating a story and suddenly you're like, why am I crying? I don't know why I'm crying. But that's how your brain works. So choose where you want it to go. You have to drive it in the direction you want it to go. And it takes a lot of intentionality.
Right. Well, and just that idea as we wrap up, the idea that you're driving down a road and sometimes you just get off track and you can just correct yourself, get back on the track and drive straight or whatever. But you're going to sometimes get lost and you're going to get off track, but you do have the ability to get back, on track. And I just love everything you shared. And I know that people listening will love it too. And I want people to know how to reach you and where they can find you if they want to learn more. And you have a podcast yourself as well. So that's how I found you and thought you were super cool. So I wanted you on mine. So talk about that. And then, any last words that you have for those that are listening?
Yeah, I just really want to offer you encouragement that if I can go 30 years with a literally diagnosed anxiety disorder and just flip the switch in a day, you can too. And it does not take, I know you might think, oh, but that took 30 years. No, it was 30 years of me making it worse and one single moment where it flipped. And I've seen it happen over and over and over again. This is not a forever thing. As soon as you realize that you can feel anxious and have it not be a problem, everything changes. That is a big deal. As far as where you can find me, I do have a podcast. It's called More Than Anxiety. It's on all the podcast platforms and it's on YouTube. So you can find me there. But really, I'm on LinkedIn most of the time. I think my maiden name's probably stuck in the middle. So it's Megan Lefevre DeVito. I'm the one with the curly hair. And then also just my website is megandevito.com. So you can go there. I coach a lot of clients just one-on-one. So if you are more like, no, I want all of that individual attention, that is an option. I do one-on-one clients. And I also have a group. It's called Anxious Overthinkers or Ambitious Overthinkers Anonymous. And I call it AOA. And so every week I do a lesson and I get on and talk about what's happening in your body, or let's talk about anxiety in relationships or anxiety, and hormones, whatever it is that's coming up. So we do a weekly lesson, weekly group coaching, lots of celebrations. And as that group grows, I'm going to throw in some book studies and maybe some retreats and all kinds of watch parties and fun things like that. So
yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I love that. The name that you coined for that. So
thank you.
It's really good. But thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate all of your knowledge and all of your sharing. It's so relevant. Obviously, I find this when I interview people, I'm like, wow, I really needed to hear that today too. And so I appreciate that. But it also means that, there's so many other people that I know are going to get value from what we talked about today. So I really appreciate that and appreciate you being here today.
Thank you for asking me. This has been a great way to start my day. I love it.
Yeah. So thanks everybody for listening. As always, please share these podcasts. We always love for you to rate and review them too, so that more people can find them. And we'll catch you next time, and make sure you have a joyful day. Take care. Hey there, ready to live a more joyful life? Considering connecting with someone who can help you? If so, I'd like to be that person. I offer a free consultation where we determine where the chaos is in your life and how you can learn to bring more joy each and every day. Visit my website, moyragorski.com, or simply email me, moyra@moyragorski.com, with more joy in the subject line. I look forward to connecting, and I'm here to say there will always be some chaos, which requires a little juggling, but you can find joy and live your life intentionally filled with that joy. Let me help you on your journey to joy, and that's joy, the journey of you.